Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys at home have had a fantastic Christmas for those that are celebrating. And we are very, very close to a new year. 2023 is just around the corner. I'll ask you guys what your resolutions are later on in the video. Of course, there's no Joe this week. He's back home for Christmas, Pat as well. But we've got Samuel Baski. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well.
Good Christmas. Happy birthday as well,
Boxing
Day.
Thank you very much. You guys get me anything?
No, just my presents.
It's not good enough, you know. It's supposed to be a team,
Your present
family.
was coming on Sunday Vibes.
Fair enough.
I'll
take it. Yeah, no, it was all good.
Good to hear. Good to hear. How old are you now?
We don't need to talk about that. You know, I'm just a year older.
Year older, year wiser.
Sam's always been very scared of getting older, haven't you?
There's a fear of, you know, hair getting a bit greyer, you know, bones getting a bit frailer and frailer. Yeah, and that has happened.
If
you know?
I was buying you on Football Manager or like FIFA now, I'd be like, 28.
No, I'd transfer list myself.
Contract.
and I would kick up a storm about that.
How are you doing, Chris? How's Christmas back home?
Yeah, I'm good. Obviously, we're back 2 days early because we shot another transfer-themed episode, and then all of that stuff would have been out of date. We wanted to give ourselves an extra couple of days off, but we're here because big things have happened. Big rumours, some concrete moves, and we're going to get stuck into it right now, aren't we?
Yeah, indeed. Chris has said it right there. We're going to be talking about the possible biggest January transfer sales that could be happening. A lot has changed. For instance, last week we were talking about Cody Gakpo to Manchester United. And within the space of 7 days, he's moved to Liverpool Football
Fuming.
Club.
You know, the headline, signs for Liverpool for 40 million euros. I was just like, well, that's me going back to London 2 days early. So...
Indeed. But let's get into it. We're not going to talk about Cody Gakpo just yet. We might touch upon him later on. But we need to talk about Arsenal and the possible signing of Mudryk. Now, for those of you at home who have not seen this possible transfer, I don't know how, because it's all over Twitter. It is everywhere. But there is interest in Mudryk, the Shakhtar Donetsk player, who is only 21 years old. He is going to be turning 22 very soon. In fact, just before we started shooting this, the CEO of Shakhtar Donetsk, Sergei Palkin, actually said that he was having a call with Arsenal in 5 minutes. So whilst we're shooting this, he is talking to Mikel Arteta.
I love it.
Brilliant. So we've come to shoot this so it's not out of date, and then I'll search it.
Indeed.
I love that he's making it a spectacle, though. I'm about to have a conversation with Arsenal.
Of course,
see what happens next.
Because he might be about to get a record fee for his player. He had a quote earlier this week saying, "We are quite far from what we want at the moment and what clubs propose. It is not what we need. We have discussions. It is maybe 50-50 with regards to the winter window of Mudryk leaving Shakhtar Donetsk to join Arsenal in January." So, Ham, I'm going to come straight to you.
Yeah.
What do you make of the deal and maybe the scenario that Arsenal are in at the moment? Obviously, Gabriel Jesus has the injury from the World Cup.
Of course.
And so do you think he'd be coming straight into the side? Do you think it'd be a good signing for that amount of money? What are your first opinions and thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that Shakhtar are so bullish on the price when no one else is bidding for him, no one else driving up the price. So they must feel fairly convinced that Arsenal will part ways with the money eventually. I think he said they want Grealish money, didn't he? So
it's a lot of money.
Thanks to Manchester City, you know, for inflating the winger market. No, but here we are, and Arsenal have been hell-bent on a winger for a little while, haven't they? Obviously went in for Rafinha to the tune of 65 million euros, I think, in the summer. He opted to go to Barcelona, so maybe Arteta, this was his plan A after that. But I thought, in the absence of Gabriel Jesus against West Ham, Arsenal were still incredibly well-rounded, a well-oiled machine. I thought they were brilliant against West Ham. Actually won 3-1, didn't they? They took 16 shots in that game, which was their season average. So I found it interesting that even in the absence of their talisman, Gabriel Jesus, it didn't really affect the productivity of that attack. Eddie Nketiah, of course, scoring in his first Premier League start of the season. I think made 12 substitute appearances
really good goal as well.
Fantastic finish. Lets it roll across his body. Yeah. Like, we know that he's a menace inside the box. He's maybe just not as good at Gabriel Jesus at the build-up, at the intricate stuff. But Ødegaard stepped into that void, the creativity void, and delivered a masterclass, didn't he? Surplus creativity coming from him to make up for it. I mean, if they want to save a little bit of money or maybe drive a hard bargain with Shakhtar, they do have options, don't they? Smith Rowe is returning from injury, so they could always play him down the left and Martinelli as a striker, something that Arteta has toyed with in the past and that we've speculated about in the past. And Martinelli showed those instincts once again against West Ham, didn't he? Scored another goal, although Fabianski should have covered that as near post, but we'll forget about that. Yeah, so you could have Smith Rowe on the left, Martinelli down the centre, Saka on the right. Or you could, wait for Reece Nelson to return from his hamstring injury. I don't know how serious that is. I'm sure Arsenal fans will let me know in the comments below. But he's played on the left and on the right at various points this season to great effect, although largely been confined to cameo appearances, hasn't he? I think his star turn actually came on the right, didn't it, when he came on for Saka earlier in the season. But started against Brighton on the left in the EFL Cup. And he's a great stand-in as well. So Arsenal are in a decent position in terms of decent stop gaps, but they're of course 7 points clear at the Premier League, 7 points clear of second, in the Premier League at the time of recording, and they are now maybe thinking if we add a Mudryk to our arsenal, our weaponry, will it give us a much stronger chance of going toe-to-toe with Manchester City in the dying embers of the season, because of course they have such a deep squad. Yeah. Arsenal, a reasonably deep squad, but the quality definitely steps down with every rung to a significant degree, doesn't it? So Mudryk, I know, just to give the team at home a little profile on him, right-footed left winger, absolutely decimated Celtic, home and away in the Champions League. We would have got 6 points had it not been for him. The quickest man on dry land in the world. I don't know. Do you get quick men in water? I don't know.
Dashing the incredible.
Yeah, just unbelievable in transition. And obviously Shakhtar are geared to play that way. They are geared to get the most out of him. Yeah, 22 on the 5th of January, so still a great age. This season, been killing it in the top division of Ukrainian football. I think it's 7 goals, 6 assists in 11 starts, 12 appearances. And he was great in the Champions League as well. 5 goals and assists in 6 starts. Now, for me, it's a little bit of a style clash with an Arteta, for example, in that he'd be a wild card, wouldn't he? He's not this guy that is good at all the intricate stuff. Yeah. What are you talking about, Siri? How about you shut up? Yeah, he's not someone that's... I think he was averaging 20 passes per 90 in the Champions League, for example, 22. Only Nketiah averages less for Arsenal in the Premier League. So he doesn't get heavily involved in build-up. He isn't going to bring other attackers into play in the same way that maybe Gabriel Jesus does, although he's playing down the centre, but a Martinelli can or a Saka can. So maybe is much more direct than anything they have, and would be something totally different, which I think is going to be the appeal here for Arteta. Yeah. But yeah, we can talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I want to know your thoughts on it as well. Because they have been linked with other people, haven't they, of late?
Yeah, no, but I think the Mudryk potential signing is really good for Arsenal. And like you said, when you look at the comparison between them and City, we saw City against in their last Premier League game. They're just too dominant, and the players that they have coming off the bench, it doesn't change the style at all. When you talk to Arsenal fans, the problem that they do have is that when they're playing the Europa League games or someone gets injured, like a Gabriel Jesus or someone in midfield or a party or a winger, their whole structure changes. You almost see that there's a drop in standard, and it's obviously you won't expect Arsenal to be of the level of City, but I think these signings are 22 in January. He's got the profile, something completely different. He's improved season on season, so I think he'll be a great signing. But when you look at the other players that they're going for, there's one player that I actually really wanted him to, I want him to, be on Chelsea's radar, and that's Joao Felix. I think he's been a player that we've seen, play very well for Portugal, but Atletico Madrid, we haven't seen that level. And obviously we know what we saw of him when he was at Benfica, and the fact that he was a player that was on the lips of everyone. He was exciting forward. He can play in multiple positions. He gets the numbers. He's just a great forward to have, especially the modern day forward. But for Atletico Madrid, I just don't think it's working out. And Arsenal now, I think it's almost like an option. well, we've seen that they said that they want to go in for Joao Felix and Mudryk. So that shows that their intention is there, and they want to seriously challenge for this title, but also moving forward as well.
I think they're in dreamland, to be quite honest. Ornstein came out, and I think he said on some American show, it might be like a CBS or something, that Arsenal do want both, but the numbers would have to come down, which is just I want Lionel Messi. Chelsea aren't going to do that, right? Like Atletico Madrid know the amount of money that they can be getting for Joao Felix. Shakhtar Donetsk know the amount of money that they can be getting for Mudryk, and obviously as well, you'd assume that Joao Felix's wages would be quite high considering what he's on at Atletico.
Which is over 200. I think it's almost 300,000 euros
exactly.
gross.
It's a lot of money,
and they want whoever comes in to pick up those wages as well as paying an extortionate loan fee. I've seen like in between 13, 16 million euros for the entire package for 6 months worth of football. They know
they're trying to bump. They're trying to bump someone.
They know that. Oh, look, Newcastle have broken into the top four.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a few big teams that haven't started as well in the Premier League as they anticipated. So we're going to dangle this carrot. We need to earn a little bit of money. But it's a smart move from them. But at the moment, both Shakhtar and Atletico are driving too hard a bargain, I reckon, to land both. That's just a sensible
100%,
conclusion.
100%.
But
I mean, if Arsenal got that through, that's incredible. Like the one you mentioned there about the depth in Arsenal squad, especially when you're competing against someone like Manchester City, who have all of
even
what he's
Liverpool
doing.
Now.
I mean, Liverpool signings, we'll get onto them later on, but they do need depth. They do need depth. My one concern slightly is bringing in someone like Mudryk, as you mentioned earlier, is very, very different. And whilst that does have a lot of positives of, say, a game isn't going quite the way you want, then someone that is very, very different to the other players that you've got is very direct, is willing to just kind of run at people. I've seen some highlights of him in like the youth games where he turns and starts like essentially going past people back to his own box, and then turns again and does it again. So he's quite out there. He's someone that's still very, very raw, and maybe after what we've seen already with Mikel Arteta and some of the youngsters in Saka and Martinelli, he has shown that he can kind of develop them and mould them into kind of whatever kind of winger that he wants. And so Mudryk can have that possible future with
evolution,
Arsenal, but that requires game time. And right now, Gabi Jesus is out, so there is game time available. But what happens when Gabi Jesus is fit? Eddie Nketiah is on £100,000 a week. You're obviously if you're also looking at Joao Felix, you're obviously looking to getting another forward and another attacker in who's versatile. And so minutes do start drying up there. And at the moment they're in the Europa League. Next season they're going to be in the Champions League, where they want their best players playing week in, week out. And so minutes aren't going to be regularly available for these guys. And someone else might say that creates competition, and that's a good thing. But that's a lot of money, 80 million plus, which is what's being quoted at the moment.
But that's what you
like Mudryk,
that's what you almost need at the top level. You look at like the best clubs in the world. You've got like star players coming off the bench. City, if their starting lineup, Grealish doesn't necessarily start, or even last season wasn't necessarily starting. That's £100 million. Do you know what I mean? Like. For Arsenal to get to that level and to compete on across all bases, Arteta's already said that they're ahead of schedule in terms of the plan that he had for the squad. So if he's able to get these players in while they're flying and being on the radar of these top players, and we've seen Mudryk, we've seen all the signs and signals that he's sending out to Arsenal. He genuinely wants to play for the club, and that's the type of player that you would want. Arteta's going to feed off of that, and it will only make them better. I don't think that him not getting like minutes week in, week out, especially when they've got young forwards. Like they're all 22, 23, 24. So the likelihood is they're not going to be able to play week in, week out. And if they don't, or if there's injuries, or you have to embed someone into the squad like gradually, I think that's the perfect scenario.
Yeah, we are at a point now where, because of the stupid money in football, sensible doesn't win you league titles. Like, you might need to have an £80 million player on your bench in order to go toe to toe with the very best in the best league, which is of course the Premier League at the moment. But yeah, you look at their raw materials, because obviously we're talking about Mudryk here and we're talking about Joao Felix, and you do think that Joao Felix is more simpatico with what Arteta usually demands of a player, and that if one of their main motives to sign Mudryk is to capture lightning in a bottle, this unlikely title bid, then could Joao Felix also serve the same purpose on that 6-month loan deal, and then they revisit the composition of their forward line in the summer? Maybe they don't. Maybe they see that as a more viable option than being forced into spending £80 million now, when they wanted to offer 40 up front and 25 worth of add-ons. Clearly, there's a big discrepancy there. But maybe Shakhtar will just get it done. But I mean, I say that because we've got some numbers down here, and as much as Arteta is a great coach, it's an odd starting point for a player or the style that he normally demands. You know, Mudryk in the Champions League, bottom 6% of forwards in the competition for pass completion. He was bottom 1%, I think, for passes completed. He is decisive when he gets the opportunity. I think putting 66% of his efforts on target. Is a great outlet, and that he receives a lot of progressive passes, but he doesn't start any moves from deep. A high volume dribbler, but only completes 29% of them. Like, that's not going to float in the Premier League.
Yeah, 100%.
Zero defensive output, and Joao Felix really ticks all the boxes.
Having worked on Simeone as well.
To that degree, yeah. But that being said, people felt like this about Haaland when he was going to Manchester City. Like, he isn't a Pep style player.
Don't know why.
Very different.
No, but it's similar in a sense that sometimes.
Of course, they're different players, but the scenario.
Yeah, it's similar.
The scenario is similar in that they're buying a player who just puts the fear of God into the opposition because of their skill set, because of their physicality more so than their technique. And, you know, he's going to be what an option to have coming off the bench for the last 20 minutes of games. And you've got to think, obviously, the 5 subs, the extended Champions League, the FIFA Club World Cup is going to happen. Yeah. So more and more games over the next 2 or 3 years. I kind of poo-poo the idea of them signing Rafinha in the summer for 65 mil because it would have forced Saka onto the left. You know, what then do you do with Martinelli? What then do you do with Nketiah? But Mudryk, if he's happy to be a 20 starts a season in all competition guy for the next 1 or 2 years.
I hear what Ivan is saying, but I just don't think it's that extreme. I think with the side that Arteta's building, they want to be a part of this new surge of like Arsenal getting back to the top. Do you know what I mean? We haven't seen this in years. We've seen, and you're talking about the type of profile he is. I think he will actually relish the opportunity to learn under a coach like Arteta, because we've seen what he's been able to do with younger players. In Nketiah, we've seen him improve incredibly since Arteta's come in. Martinelli was a bit rawer. Now you're seeing him, like, his dribbling is a bit refined. He doesn't force dribbles like he used to. Saka is obviously incredible as well, but we saw at City as well, there was a lot of the younger players. He made Sterling into the finisher that he is. So I think Mudryk coming into this side and being a player that's improved season on season, and then coming into this fold where he doesn't have the pressure of the price tag to perform week in, week out. I think that would be a perfect scenario for him.
Yeah, it'd be proper reductive to say that he can't improve under Arteta.
No, for sure.
I'm not saying that, but he's 22. Like, wingers experience their peak a little bit early. Yep. Traditionally, not all wingers, you know, like brilliant ones like Raheem Sterling can reinvent themselves. But yeah, have a peak probably from 22, 23 to 26. So you're buying him for what he is right now, rather than developing him over the next 2 or 3 years. And what he is right now is unbelievable in transition. He's going to force a high line, maybe like Liverpool's, maybe like Man United's, to drop 5-10 yards just out of like fear, like I said earlier. So I think they are buying him to be that impact player. I mean, again, like, I'm thinking of players like Theo Walcott in the past, who at 22, 23, their speed genuinely did make players think twice. And I think he put up like 16 goal contributions at that age. But yeah, turning 22 is the point I'm making. Probably not loads of development left to do. Of course he's going to improve. But I don't know, it'd be interesting. Maybe Arteta thinks he can evolve into a number 10 or whatever. But Felix, if you buy Felix, I think he's going to have an interesting evolution in his career further on down the line. Like, where he can become like a Griezmann, for example. He just is that good technically. I love him, bit infatuated with him. Where I think if you buy, even if you spend 85 mil on him now and pay him the big wages, you've probably got him for the next 8-9 years, like doing bits. Although he doesn't exactly have a home either in that starting lineup.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Or, you know, a nailed on one. But yeah,
it's the full essence, especially Mudryk, of a wild card. It'll be interesting to see what will happen. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And also, if you had to pick one or the other, in Joao Felix to Arsenal or Mudryk to Arsenal, let me know down there. Let's move over to another Premier League club, Leicester City, who in the summer didn't buy many players. I think it was just that goalkeeper in the end, who doesn't even start for them anyway. I think he was just meant to be their backup keeper. But they're looking at Azzedine Ounahi, who had a fantastic World Cup tournament.
He He was incredible.
I mean, Morocco were incredible, right?
Yeah.
They were fantastic. And actually coming out of that tournament, there was a lot of talk about Amrabat. I remember seeing him linked to Liverpool, and I was like, oh, God, like, out of all the... Like, there's always one of those players that come out of the World Cup and everyone's like, he's amazing, he's great. Like, every club needs to go and buy him. When realistically, he had a fantastic World Cup in a very, like, solid system, strict system, and maybe in club football wouldn't quite work out for teams.
I hear what you're saying,
This
but
is
I do...
Amrabat,
I feel like Amrabat could be a good option for a top side.
He was being linked to Liverpool, right? And I don't think that's... I think he's kind of... He can maybe go to another kind of club below Liverpool. The guys trying to get into the Europa League or something like that. Absolutely fine, but not to Zano Liverpool. But Ounahi, obviously 22 years old, playing in League 1 at the moment, and he's been rated at £39.5 million by L'Equipe. That is a lot of money. Well, is it a lot of money now? Because I was thinking this a couple of days ago that for ages we kind of said that, okay, nowadays the £30 million transfer is what used to be the £15 million transfer. And I kind of think it's jumped up again.
Yeah, 100%.
Where the traditional £30 million transfer is now actually the £50 million transfer of the day. And a lot of more clubs, and you're seeing Aston Villa, West Ham, and so on and so forth, are spending 40 to 50 million
for the Premier
pounds
League.
on
Everyone
these
else
players.
is like, we've stopped.
Exactly, and ruining the market. Okay, so let's talk about Ounahi. Leicester City over here, big fan. How are you feeling about him? Obviously, with Tielemans going in the summer, looking like it's going to happen.
Just
he's
to
not gonna be signing
clarify,
a new deal.
I only support Celtic. I don't have a second club.
Not a second club, but
because
you're
I'm
from
not-
Leicester.
Because I'm not
Your local
11.
club. Your local club.
I don't mind watching them.
Your local.
If they got relegated and Rodgers went, I wouldn't even bat an eye.
Your local club.
First, I want to hear from you boys. What was it like to watch Amrabat and Ounahi then in the flesh and be amongst the Moroccan fans then? Because you got to soak in.
You had a
that
really
atmosphere.
good time. You were there a couple of times.
Yeah, no, I think
Morocco, weren't
the
you?
Moroccan fans were easily top 2 fans at the World Cup. They literally made every single game a home game. Like they were incredible, and I think that also plays a part in how good their team were playing. I think everyone kind of realised that it wasn't by luck. You know, normally there's like a dark horse that they're just almost getting by, and then they end up being in the semis. Like that was not Morocco. The style of play that they had, the way they defended as a unit and then counter-attacked as a unit as well, it just worked perfectly for them. And Amrabat and Ounahi were like pivotal to that. Their downfall almost came when he got a slight injury.
A few of their players. Saïd's
got an injury as well, and it was quite unfortunate because even the game that they lost against France, they could have easily won if they had their full system. But yeah, no, they were incredible, man.
Indeed,
Yeah, I really like Ounahi. As in, like, I can see why Leicester losing Youri Tielemans probably to Arsenal. You know, we didn't even speak about that as a sort of footnote in the whole Mudryk thing. I could see why they would want to bring someone of his skill set in. I mean, they would lose a lot of end product with Tielemans versus Ounahi.
Yeah,
I don't think.
100%.
I think in 23, 24 games for club and country this season, Ounahi's yet to contribute to a goal, but that probably says more about Angers than him, right? Whereas Tielemans has been consistently putting up like 10 a season, so they might miss a bit of end product, but they get a lot of ball circulation, ball progression, someone that's really comfortable picking up the fullback, off the centre back, and working it through midfield. And he's 22, so you know, plenty of upside.
And Rodgers has a good track history of taking these youngsters and kind of
improving
He
them.
did until Boubacar Samare.
Daka as well, barely played, I guess, too.
Absolutely zero progression in about 2 years. I was watching against Newcastle and I was like,
They were stinking.
What has
against
happened? Yeah, no,
Newcastle,
that was
man.
just
bad.
thinking like, I've given you
But
so
they
much
missed
time.
They missed out on James Maddison, though. They missed out on James Maddison.
Yeah,
who obviously with his knee injury was obviously everything for Leicester before the World Cup, and hopefully he's coming back pretty soon. They are in need of midfield reinforcement.
Yeah, diabolical against Newcastle. It's got to be said. Like, Ndidi, obviously, his fitness can't be wholly trusted at the moment. Only started 50% of games last season. Only starting 50% of games this season. Without James Maddison on the pitch, who does drop deep an awful lot to kickstart play as well, which I don't think he gets enough credit for. The progression was just not there. Like, KDH was playing at 10, and you don't want to see Dewsbury Hall at 10. You want to see him on the left of a midfield three, driving the ball up the pitch, like Kovacic style. He's actually very, very good at that. But it's just like Barnes wasn't getting the ball. KDH wasn't getting the ball.
Defensively
When
was a
Perez
mess
came on,
as
I wanted
well.
to kill myself. It was just like, they do need someone like Ounahi, and he's going to cost a lot, €39.5 million, but according to Capology, only on like €11,000 a week at Angers. So wages aren't going to be killer. Like I said, he's 22, so you get him at a good age, get him on a 4 or 5 year contract. He's going to serve out, some of his prime with you, most of his prime. I know there's a few clubs in for him, unlike with the whole Mudryk situation. So Leicester are going to have to compete. But
This is a good step up.
if they let Tielemans go and they don't replace him in January, I think they could free fall down the table. I really do.
Yeah, and I think for Ounahi, I think that this would be a good gradual step up. Like going from the team that he's playing in now, having a good World Cup. I think sometimes you get lost in the idea of what has happened at the World Cup, and we know national football is completely different to club football. Like you said, at Leicester, he's still gonna have improvements to make under Rodgers. If you're gonna replace a player like Tielemans, he was a cult hero for Leicester. He's been a part of them winning trophies in the last few seasons. Gets on the score sheet, and he's now used to the Premier League. It's not going to be easy for a player like Ounahi. Yes, he's been linked with quite a few of the top clubs in the world, but going from Angers to the top clubs would be a big ask. I think going to a team like Leicester, where they're trying to like almost reinvent themselves, they kind of hit a little bit of a ceiling with the players that they have, having to wanting to tie players down that don't want to be tied down, having to play players that want to leave, players like Ndidi that used to be so trusted are not as consistent as they used to be as well. I think he would be like a good first signing to show where Leicester are trying to go in the future and, be that next wave of talent.
Yeah, because their succession plans of late have not been good. And I
signing
do like
somewhere.
to see them do well, but like going from the Johnny Evans Sionchu partnership to Wout Faes, who's made a promising start, although I think it's
Better than
been
expected.
somewhat overblown, and Daniel Amati is really poor. Castagne's obviously been a downgrade from Pereira, even though Castagne made a good start. Luke Thomas, like fine squad player, but to go from Chilwell to him, like it's just their quality has been diluted in every department, and I think this would be a real pick-me-up signing for the fans. Like he's playing for the Ligue 1's basement side, and he's in the top 1% for dribbles complete, top 5% for progressive passes, received. So he is everywhere on the pitch. Progressive passes received, that is when you're like carrying it into the final third effectively. He's good at making top 30% for progressive passes as well. So I think we saw that at the World Cup. He's able to start play, or he's able to be the more advanced midfielder that receives play, little half turn, gets himself into dangerous positions where he can shoot or bring a winger into play. Like, he's very multifaceted, and that is what Tielemans is. Despite Tielemans, having to just drop back into a right back position for the last 6 months and be the one to be able to pass it out. Tielemans at his best is box to box, lacks a bit of physicality to maybe like be truly box to box, but it can be anything. And I think Ounahi probably can be that for Leicester within time. I think you're right, in his time.
It'll be interesting for his future. The one thing I do worry about is obviously Leicester don't have a lot of money, and so it'll be interesting to see whether he can.
Well, they have a lot of things to pay for, right?
Indeed. But obviously in the summer they weren't able to spend, and then got the 80 million for Fofana, and so we'll be getting that. So it'll be interesting to see whether that'll be the only signing that they bring in. Let's move over to Chelsea, because in the past week, they have been busy boys. They've had the confirmation of the striker called Fofana up top. Whether he'll be staying with the club for the rest of the season will be very interesting. Another one of their kind of young players profile that are coming in. They've also had the Brazilian, Andre Santos, another one who's like 20 or 12 million or something like that. Brazilian centre mid. Young coming in, not completed yet, but very, very close. I think it's all about work permits. And then they've been linked to two others as well. Reece James was injured again, unfortunately, against Bournemouth in Chelsea's first game back after the World Cup and after Christmas. And so a backup right back is desperately needed now. Reece James has gone from a world-class player, who he is when he is fully fit and playing,
Absolutely.
but he is now becoming injury-prone. I think that is the kind of scenario that we're in at the moment. He's had his second or third knee injury already this season, and it's a recurring one from previous seasons. And when your backup right back is now Cesar Azpilicueta, who is a club servant, a legend at the club, and obviously won everything he could possibly win with Chelsea, he is also now into his 30s and basically regressing and coming towards the end of his career. And when Chelsea are trying to progress, Azpilicueta isn't necessarily helping when everything comes down their fullback positions.
Yeah.
And so the player they've been linked to is Juranovic from Celtic. So again, this is a club that you support, Hamill. Tell me about him. Do you think both clubs are happy with this kind of deal?
Could I just say, I went to Hamill, I was like, Juranovic, like, tell me about him. He was so angry. He was like, what now type of thing. He was so vexed at the price tag that was being banded everywhere. And he was just like, 7 million.
I saw like Barcelona interested in Juranovic for 6 million, and I was like, well, they can be interested as they like for 6 million. They're definitely not going to get him.
Well, you guys also know that Chelsea are in a position where they need a backup right back. So
Yeah,
charge
and
what you want.
clearly, like, don't mind spending money. Like, if you're going to spend 20 million euros on a youngster into Milan, then Celtic will be like, well, you know what, 15 feels reasonable for our starting right back that's just played 6 games in the Champions League group stages. I can tell you a bit about Juranovic. This might be the first time in 7 years on Sunday Vibes where Celtic I've been asked a question about a Celtic player rather than forcing it upon people. I think Celtic would be very receptive to selling him for like between 15. I think 20 is probably ambitious, but 15 would be really fair for him. We picked him up for couple mil, maybe 2.5 from Legia Warsaw 18 months ago, and since then he's been a really solid first team player. And what he does have is quite a desirable skill set for like modern progressive coaches, in that he's good physically, as in strong running power, and that's where Azpilicueta falls short in comparison to someone like Reece James, in that you can see it's painful, his inability to get up and down. Still good on the ball, still really smart, but you can hear those groans when he's like making a recovery run and like
when you're seeing him trying to make the overlap,
and
it's just like the player on the right wing is just waiting for him to go around.
It's just age, and it's just with Reece James it's way more fluid.
Well,
you saw the first half,
and he was never
never that.
So
Juranovic is quick, like not lightning, but very quick, with a good engine. So, like I'd say, a two-way fullback who's extremely comfortable stepping into midfield. Like Ange Postecoglou obviously insists on inverted fullbacks to join his midfield. So he's clocking up between, in the Champions League, I think it was 45, 50 passes per 90, which is very similar to what Cucurella was putting up. So those demands that Potter would put on him in terms of ball circulation, he would be very comfortable with. So that's one big tick. And his running power, like I said, is another. He does give you like good recovery pace. He like almost relishes being the man that doesn't go up for the corner, stood on the halfway line, being like, "Come on, then let's get into a foot race."
Like to hear
Unless
that.
you're Julian Alvarez, he probably doesn't want to see that man
He had
again.
a good World Cup though. He said for Croatia.
He did. He looked a little bit tired by the time he got to Argentina.
The last game,
Semi-finals,
because
Brazil,
they went to back extra times, right?
Against Brazil, he was great, wasn't he? He looked like one of the best players
especially
on the pitch.
compared to the left back for Croatia, Suso.
Borna Sosa.
Sosa. Oh, he was stinking.
And his black boots look like plimsolls. But he's not irreplaceable for Celtic. So this kind of works for both ways. Like we've played a lot of Tony Ralston in the league. At the minute, Rio Tate's fitting in there. We've just bought Canada's starting right back as well. Yeah. So like we've got options there. We're clearly bracing ourselves for a bid. So it feels quite realistic. And I think it's one of those ones where if you bought him for 15 mil, it would prove exceptional value for money. Didn't look out of place in the Champions League. Celtic did have one of the more porous defences, but I think we were quite unlucky in that regard. I think only like 4 or 5 clubs had a worse record in terms of goals conceded, but expected goals against maybe was a bit more favourable.
How's he facing Mudryk?
He almost kept up, when Mudryk was on the ball. Off the ball, different story. But he was the one guy where you were like, oh no, if he gets past... If Mudryk gets past Juranovic, it's a goal. So I think he's a Champions League quality defender, and he's improved a lot under Postecoglou, and he's probably ready to make the next step. So I wouldn't begrudge him it.
Would he be happy to sit on the bench? Because that was the whole thing when people talk about backups at Chelsea. We had obviously Tarek Lamberty, we had Tino Livramento, and their whole thing was, look, we're not going to play ahead of Reece James. We want to be playing regular football. Do you think he'll be happy to sit on the bench?
I think probably 18 months ago, he would never have dreamed of facing Real Madrid in the Champions League, of being a first team option at Chelsea. So I think he would take it, and I think you'd be able to triple his wages pretty easily. He's 27 now.
Okay,
I want to say. It's a move like this. It's got to happen sooner rather than later, hasn't it? So I could imagine him like maybe moving on in 2 or 3 years once like if Reece James's whole
Settles down,
injury scenario calms down, and you're just sort of happily letting him go for like 5 mil or something, or pennies on the dollar. But right now, I think he's a really smart option to cover Reece James.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm keen on that.
Chelsea
to be
need
fair.
it.
And you
I'm
love
sold.
spending the cash.
I'm sold. I'm sold. He's really sold it to me. But what I was going to say about the Livramento and Lamperty situation, I think their situations are quite different because at his age, like you said, he's played in the Champions League. He's got the experience, and now going to a side like Chelsea. At this stage in his career, knowing that Reece James is having inconsistencies in terms of his injuries, he's going to get game time. So he knows that that's going to be given at their point when Lamperty, especially,
they wanted to be playing football,
and
100%.
James was fully fit. He was just coming into the side. You know what I mean? So seeing both scenarios, like I'll be happy. Like it's unfortunate that happened because it's like almost if the timing was just a little bit different, they probably would be playing like week in week out, and James would have longer to recover.
And I think you're going to stick with you played 4 against.
I think
Bournemouth.
the future is 4.
I think 4.
I think the future is 4.
I think 3 at a higher level would maybe cover for some of his deficiencies. Like he is a little bit flappy in transition. Like the ball, like, the long diagonal over his head. Sometimes like his tackling is better than his anticipation. But I mean, better quality of players around him would probably cover for that as well. But
Perfect. Okay, let's move on to the breaking story that happened this week. Enzo Fernandez had a fantastic World Cup.
Hold on, Badiashile as well.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You two want to tell me about
Badiashile. Badiashile.
Would you welcome him through the doors at Chelsea?
So obviously Chelsea were linked to Josep Gvardiol. That's actually one of the players we spoke about last week for the tune of over 100.
Bin that section on.
For the tune of over 100 million euros. And I think we've all sat here before and said he's a fantastic centre-back, will probably become one of the world's best centre-backs. Had an amazing World Cup, obviously then got ripped apart by Lionel Messi, but who doesn't get ripped apart by Lionel Messi? So can't really put that against him or a mark next to his name because of that. And I was like, okay, in my head, I was like, the way Chelsea are making a lot of their signings, they're going for these young guys for not the tune of £100 million. And I was like, okay, so when we've gone for Badiashile for 35 million euros to 40 million euros, makes sense. It's that same box being ticked of young guy who has huge potential, and rather than him, say, moving to a Leicester City like what Fofana did when he was at St Etienne, and then spending 80 or £1 million, or like Gvardiol at RB Leipzig and spending £100 million, we'll get him now and try and give him game time and develop, or send him on
cut out the middleman policy.
Exactly. And then obviously we went and put this bid in for Enzo Fernandez, so we'll get onto it in a bit. So completely changed that, but I like it. I think it makes sense. And left centre back. Chelsea are stocking up on centre-backs now, because you've also got Levi Cole at Brighton, who's just played 4 games in a row and looked pretty good as well.
Yeah.
That's easy, finally getting minutes.
Yeah, looked really
minutes.
good. He's a left-footed centre-back who's developing fantastically. And so you are looking at a future now where Chelsea have Colwill, they've got Bennett Badiashile, Trevor Chalobah. Thiago Silva's probably going to get given another year contract because he just continues.
He's amazing.
That's 4 there. Fofana coming back from injury. Koulibaly as well. That's 6 centre-backs. And I still feel like I'm missing some. There's Humphreys, another youngster who's been on the bench for Chelsea as well now. And so that's a lot of players. I think Chelsea are going to probably start selling soon.
Yeah, but in this situation, like I'm not necessarily too pressed about.
Silva eventually going to have to.
Yeah, Silva's going to eventually have to go.
Days.
Koulibaly as well, even though we've signed him, and it's interesting because the window that we just had when the new owners came in was like you could almost see that they were trying to prepare for this season. So you're getting experienced players that. Some at the top of their game, some in different leagues. Like Koulibaly was highly rated, come to this league, but he's still coming to the end of his career. Sterling, he's a senior player. He's still got a few years left in him that he's going to be at the top level. But I feel like now you're seeing Chelsea almost prepare for the future. But having that and the players that we've just signed in that window, I think there's going to be a nice balance of players that know the game at the top level, but then having players that are coming from Monaco, coming from all these different leagues that are highly rated, coming into this system. Graham Potter, who's known to improve players in this system, it's exciting. Yes, it can look like there's not necessarily like, oh, we knew we was gonna sign him. Like I thought, okay, Gvardiol, I thought, okay, cool. When I think we had a pre-agreement with him or something along those lines, we were trying.
We agreed personal terms, but you couldn't agree a fee.
And at that point, I was like, like he was a player that I knew of. I saw a few highlights, seen him in a few games, but then in the World Cup, you're like, we're not going to get this guy because it's going to cost too much.
£100 million as well for a defender is so much.
It's a lot of money, but with him, it was almost like the Virgil van Dijk. Even though Virgil van Dijk was a bit older, you could just see that he's going to be a top, guarantee. He's going to be a quality player.
But I don't know, like, so for instance, if you spend £100 million on a forward, I think they can affect you a lot more than a £100 million centre back.
I don't know,
Personally,
I think it's a bit different because with centre backs, with strikers, if they don't score or they're having great games, like you can still say that they're not doing that well. Well, that's what the football world is saying now. With centre backs, we've seen not Koulibaly, Virgil van Dijk. That's like the
transform it for Liverpool.
Transform their whole system and just make them so much more durable than any other.
He was like 26, 27 when he got bought by there. He was experienced. I'm not saying Gvardiol isn't.
And he
but
was
it's just the type
after
of player.
Salah. I think if Salah had arrived after Van Dijk, you'd be like, Salah was the transformative.
Exactly.
But that just pays like lip service to what you're both saying, and that like I think we all get a bit caught up and infatuated with the idea of like a transformative signing, whether that be a forward or not. But really, like they've all got to be simpatico with the system your manager wants to play. Graham Potter, I think, like heavy possession, like secure. Pretty secure football, can be conservative at times, can be fluid, can be attacking, but I don't think like he's ever, because he's a very good coach, any of his teams are ever going to be like really porous, for example. Like they don't take a lot of risks. Everyone knows what they're doing, so maybe. Well, I mean, at the moment, this is obviously a bit recency bias as well, but forward, like you're saying, is going to be of higher value to Chelsea. But I don't. Saying that, I would still pay the money for Gvardiol because you're also denying your rivals.
I think the other thing as
his
well
services as well, right?
Man City are after him.
But at the minute you're like buying all these youngsters, and it's like I can't wait to finish second or third in 4 years.
But this is it. 100%. This is definitely.
They'll go that far. We can win the league.
But this is definitely maybe not third or fourth. Like the whole idea, I think, of Chelsea signings now is going. Okay, we're not going to beat City this season. We're not going to beat City next season. Might not be in the season after that. But the season after that, in 3 years, when these guys are now 25, 26 years old and have, say, 6 years ahead of them and playing in their prime, is when I think Chelsea want to have that kind of era of dominance. And that's why they're signing these guys at this age. However, it's a big difference to what Chelsea were.
Yeah, but
they were winning things every year, and you had to be winning things every year.
But it's also having a possibility of that happening. Like, so for example, Arsenal, they made these young signings. Everyone was saying, they need to make some senior signings. But Arteta had a vision. He had the players, and he believed that this could be a successful situation. And now you're seeing like the fruits of his labour in the sense of he trusted in the youngsters, and now they're achieving in a sense. With Chelsea, you can almost see a similar structure of signing young players, knowing that it's for the future. But if they perform beforehand, like that would be amazing, and that they're of that standard that they could.
Yeah, well, okay, let's talk about someone. We just talked about sensible transfers here, and Chelsea not spending £100 million on Gvardiol and going for 35 million Badiashile, but they are about to spend 120 million euros and activate the release clause of Enzo Fernandez at Benfica. Let's put it right. Fantastic World Cup. One young player of the tournament, has been very good for Benfica since he arrived from River Plate, but hasn't experienced a lot of European football. In fact, he's only played a few months of European football, and is now looking to go for over 100 million euros.
That's his release clause, right?
That's his release clause.
Well, reported release clause.
Exactly.
It's not being confirmed, I don't think.
And the current, well, supposedly, basically, Benfica say they want him to be their record sale if they were to sell him in January, and their record sale is Joao Felix for 127 million euros. And so that's where we are at the moment. There are reports that Benfica are desperate to keep him. Because obviously Benfica haven't won Liga NOS since 2019. That is their main aim, and they believe he is the guy to help them do that, which makes complete sense because he's been fantastic for them since he's been there. However, if they were to sell him in January, it would have to be over 120 million euros. Otherwise, in the summer, they might be more open to something like an 80 million euro bid, which is where I'm a lot more comfortable with. How are you feeling, Sam, about 127 million euros on Enzo Fernandez, who has had I'm not saying he's a bad player. I feel like that people keep thinking this. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
But it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money. And it's a tough one because, like, in the current market, you you're now seeing these young players that, let's say, have good tournaments or are playing good week in, week out, get valued by their club or have release clauses that are just too much, or you can say like, okay, that's how much how the club values them. So, for example, his contract ends in 2027. They realistically put in a release clause of 100 and something million, 20 plus. It isn't crazy. A team going into January in January to sign him, I think that is like, knowing that that's the release clause, you might be like rushing it or trying to get in there before other clubs are kind of settled, because you know the bigger names like Bellingham, Rice, that are going to be a little bit cheaper because of the lengths of their contracts. So it makes sense for like a Chelsea saying, okay, you guys want to go for Bellingham, you want to go for Rice, you want to go for all of these other players. Let's try to get Enzo. Now he's been linked with a few other teams. Chelsea, I think there's something in the structure that could potentially push them towards that sell, and I think that that's the only way they'll be able to make it. It's similar to the way we signed in Kunku, where
I forgot we signed in Kunku.
Yeah, we give them a lump sum, but we don't want to pay the full 106 million euros right now, which in that sense isn't that terrible. What you're saying about him having a great World Cup and, you know, us not seeing as much of him beforehand, obviously we're not watching Liga NOS every week. We've seen his numbers. We've seen him in the Champions League when he was playing against PSG, playing against Juve. He was one of their top performers. For Argentina, he was incredible. He was all over the place, going forward defensively as well. He was one of those box-to-box midfielders that you could say he's going to be incredible. He's very young, but he rose to the occasion. For Chelsea, I think that it is a great signing, but I think the price tag is what's putting me off a little bit, because that amount of money, we've just not seen it work out for... I can count at least on 3 hands of the amount of signings over 100 mil or just under that haven't banged.
Mbappe's the only one.
Yeah, Mbappe, possibly a few others that you could say have banged, but with Enzo, the ability he has is there. But it's just the pressure of the price tag, having to come in to perform straight away, or even if he comes in and he doesn't perform and he's almost like in and out of on the bench, because you know we've got Jorginho, Kovacic, we've got Kante coming back, Loftus-Cheek, Chukwuemeka who we want to come through, we've got Gallagher, Mount who's playing in the 8. So another midfielder coming in, it's like, if he doesn't come in, play straight away in January, does the signing make sense? It's just a waste of money. Like, if he doesn't transform you as soon as he comes in, then it's a bit of a waste. So I wouldn't be like upset if we don't sign him, but I would want us to be in for him because he's a top player.
Yeah, it's really hard to compute, isn't it? Like, spending that much money on a player who they got from River Plate for 12 million euros, who only has like 13 league games under his belt, I think, at this point. As the Portuguese league kicked back off, I'm not sure. But it is just the opportunity cost of like, him going to Real Madrid and then being great, and then Todd Bowley being like, you know what, if we had Kante off the books, Jorginho coming off the books, we got some money back for Ziyech, we ended up parting ways with Loftus-Cheek. Like, had we been a bit more proactive pushing the deadwood out, it would have funded a lot of that move. He's probably not going to be on staggering wages, or maybe his agent would negotiate that. I'm not
George
sure.
Mendes.
But maybe it wouldn't be as astronomic as we perceive if you found homes for those other players, because you do have quite a bloated squad at the moment. Like you said, a lot of players in that position. So if a lot of wheeling and dealing is done, I can see some justification for it. But yeah, it is mind-blowing that he's worth that much already. Well, he's not worth that much already. It's the market is dictating that's the price.
That's how much they value him.
We did a video on Football Daily a couple of days ago from when this video went live, talking about this deal, and a lot of people were saying, if this was Declan Rice, you'd all be saying yes. And I want to put it clear, we'd all be saying no. We said no to spending over 100 million on Declan Rice when it was a couple of seasons ago.
It's not my money. Fuck it, spend it.
Mate,
I hear that perspective as well. Like, it's not our money, but it does. Like, if no one's expecting us to be accountants and saying, if you move that 10 million over there, that this is going to do that. But at the same time, like, there is financial fair play. You have to look at these things. A few people play football managers, so they've got
Well, I think most people strive to be rational, and this would be an irrational move, but it does have massive upside. So it's a really difficult one to juggle.
My biggest worry is the future of, if Chelsea spend 127 million euros and also the 35 million, like Chelsea could be spending 200 million this January, right? And then there's still talks of they're still interested in Declan Rice in the summer and so on and so forth. Within a year, under the new ownership, Chelsea could have spent 600 million quid, if not more, which is an insane amount of money to
Enzo
spend.
and Declan Rice, though.
And again, if that's their future, if that's their whole idea of they want to get these youngsters in, that's absolutely understandable. But Chelsea need to be selling players. I've not seen enough of that happen just yet. Who knows? Maybe we'll come to the end of January and we have sold a Ziyech, we have sold a Pulisic, whatever it might be, and they are bringing in some cash to kind of counterpart that. But at the moment, that's the side I'm worrying on. I'm not saying that Fernandez isn't going to be a good signing. I just kind of worry about the future financial aspect, because I do think it can come into play.
It's worth saying that Benfica want that much money as well, because 25% I think goes to River Plate.
Yes.
So
indeed.
That's why they want the record transfer fee, isn't it? Because they lose a massive portion of it. But.
Indeed. Okay, then let's move over to Manchester United. I know I think we're going for about 30-40 minutes now or so, but let's go to Manchester United.
It's a bumper, it's a special.
Indeed. It's the one before New Year, before 2023, and the transfer window kicks off. Goncalo Ramos to Manchester United has been coming out. The 21-year-old.
Buy shares in Benfica.
No, seriously, man.
I mean, for years, Benfica have been a fantastic place to go and get your players. Yeah. It's not new news, that's for sure. No. Obviously, Ten Hag has wanted the striker. Apparently, he wanted to sign him when he was a teenager at Ajax. Obviously, Manchester United need a striker, that is for sure. Obviously, they were looking at Cody Gakpo. In the end, that didn't quite happen. Apparently, United actually said no in the end to that deal because they would have to use some of their money from the summer budget in now and would rather look for a loan move. So again, that makes sense. We'll probably move on to Gakpo after this. But Goncalo Ramos, he's played 11 matches, 9 goals, 1 assist this season. Hat-trick at the World Cup when he replaced Cristiano Ronaldo. Do we think that would be a good signing, Ham? Or how do you feel about Goncalo Ramos? Because it's a big step up to come and join Manchester United in a position that they are desperate for. There's a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, it's a little bit like with the Enzo Fernandez thing, where I don't want to be I like what I've seen so far, but being super bullish or cocksure about him would just be, I'd just be fobbing everyone off. Like, I think he's a good player. It bodes well that Ten Hag wanted him at Ajax because clearly he has a dossier on him, and this is not just a knee-jerk reaction to him banging at the World Cup. But the really appealing thing about him is that he is the complete opposite to Ronaldo, in that he's not 37 and on 400 grand a week. But no, he also is in the top 20% of forwards for tackles and interceptions, so clearly has that application that is desirable amongst top-level coaches. Naturally, it would seem, and to be doing that while at a ball-dominant side like Benfica shows that he really is just tenacious. And top 10% as well for expected goals, expected assists, touches inside the penalty area, passes completed. So the pitch he's painting so far is that he's a really well-rounded young forward.
Works hard.
And has an impressive array of finishing as well. It's instinctive, it's creative. Yeah, but then are you going to... How much are Benfica going to demand for it? Like, how much is too much for a guy like Goncalo Ramos? The Liga NOS historically been littered with, I think 2 or 3 years ago, was it Seferovic is the top goal scorer? It's hard to translate that form into Premier League form, but I don't know. The exports from the Liga NOS have been a little bit more reliable from the than from the Eredivisie, let's say. But yeah, I mean, at the minute, 50 to 60 feels like a sensible bid. But if they start asking for 100 plus for Ramos as well,
they could though, and that's the thing. Is if it's a move that they want to make in January, they don't need to sell any of these players, and I'm sure all of these players would want to be a part of that history to win that league after a World Cup season. Some of them are disappointed. He was disappointed as well to win their first title since 2019. They want to be a part of that, and I'm sure Benfica know that none of these players are going to be saying, "Oh, I want this move now," because realistically, they know in the summer they will still be able to get these moves. So I think it sounds nice on paper, Ten Hag wanting him in the past, the numbers that he's put up, his age and the fact that he's top 20% and 10% of expected goals and assists is incredible. But at the same time, I just don't think it's realistic.
It's all about this budget. The fact that United said that they can't afford to buy Gakpo in the summer now because of the budgets it is really, really interesting. I think quite telling about that they don't have a lot of money. They're looking for these loan moves. Joao Felix, we mentioned earlier, might be a possible destination to go to Old Trafford as well. And it's interesting depending on what the Glazers want to do. I mean, I'd say put their own money in. They don't do that anyway, so it'll be interesting. They don't want to put any more risk before they sell the club. Though that being said, David Ornstein came out recently and said that there's the possibility of
something
new
big.
owners, something big happening very, very soon for United.
Yeah.
So,
but then you also think that they might want to safeguard Manchester United as
This is what I
a
thought, yeah.
property by buying a player like that
Indeed.
and securing Champions League status, which is very possible given the starts that Chelsea and Liverpool have made. Right, like Manchester United look in the ascendancy. The numbers. The underlying numbers are starting to come together like they
Great
are
manager.
a top four side. If you sign, I think if they'd sign someone like a Gakpo, obviously he kind of played on the right /10 for the Netherlands, played on the left for PSV. They need a centre forward, so there is that. Like Arsenal need a central midfielder, but here we are spending £88 million on Mudryk. I think. Yeah, they might have done enough to secure top four with one more productive player. Martial gets injured, Rashford gets injured. Oh no, what happens?
Yeah.
Anthony has to come good. Sancho
comes back
Sancho
from
back from his,
the wilderness.
the wilderness, exactly. And it was one-on-one training in the Netherlands. That all of a sudden they are hoping rather than planning. But good business from Liverpool in the end with Gakpo. I'm sure we'll move on to that. But yeah.
Well, let's move on to Liverpool.
Right.
And you mentioned actually there about the club being taken over and that possibly securing their future. Liverpool in the same position, getting taken over by possible new owners, and went and signed Cody Gakpo for 42 million euros, making the club's ninth highest acquisition.
Classic
Liverpool.
But it's just so the thing is with Liverpool, and that's what I was saying to Zach earlier when we done a video on Talking Point. It's like for United, like you said, it didn't necessarily make sense because they need a striker, and what we've seen of him is playing on the right, playing on the left, and playing as a number 10. So they needed a striker. But then when Liverpool come in and you see the price, you see the profile that he is and where he would fit into their system, it's just like, how do they keep on doing this? I didn't think that it was a possibility. And for them to be in a similar situation to United and then get a player like him, and you almost know that with their current starting 11, he's not necessarily going to have to be forced in to the side. Yeah. Even though, Darwin Núñez isn't a prolific winger. He's not a finished player, but at the same time, adding Gakpo to that system, it might take the pressure off him a little bit, being the new signing and having to perform straight away. And also, he's got a few players like Virgil van Dijk, one of the leaders in the Netherlands and for Liverpool, that's going to help him bed into the squad. It's just the perfect scenario.
I love this move, man. I think it's fantastic. I think the fact they've been able to do it without anybody knowing about it, been able to get it done so quickly, where Point with PSV are happy because it's their record sale. They're over the moon with it. Second record sale, I should say. They're over the moon with it. Liverpool, not necessarily, it's not the hugest fee. If we're talking about players going for 80 million, something like you mentioned here, Fernandez going for 127, he's going for 42 million euros, around 38 million quid. Yeah. That's outrageous. And it's kind of what I think it might be is what we saw last year with Liverpool when they got Luis Diaz in for 50 million odd. And he had that knock-on effect that really pushed them on forward. I'm really, really interested to see how this goes. And it's also kind of just safeguarding their future, as you mentioned earlier. They've now gone from a front three of Mane, Firmino and Salah to probably a front three that's going to involve Gakpo, Núñez and Salah, that eventually involves Gakpo, Núñez and Jota or Diaz, and are able to Carvalho, Elliott, and are able to kind of eventually develop it without having to put all this pressure on just one of the signings straight away. Still got Firmino as well at the club, and so I think it's really, really smart. It could be the best bit of business this January.
Just pound for pound, they smash it out every time, don't they? In this 40 to 50 million pound benchmark. That's how much Jota cost. That's how much Luis Diaz cost. But this move is a necessity and not just a nicety if they do want to crack back into the top four. And of course, they are coming from a bigger deficit than other clubs we've spoken about, who are making potential signings because Luis Diaz, out for another 3 or 4 months after requiring surgery on that knee. Diogo Jota has that calf injury. Yeah. Curtis Jones has got a really weird one. It's called a stress reaction of the tibia. Missed 9 games. Oxlade-Chamberlain had to start against Aston Villa, right? So that's not exactly their optimum starting 11. So you add someone who is tactically versatile to that forward line, and it provides a little bit more solidity, a little bit more availability. But yeah, I think just a wonderful signing, a really, really smart one. Signed a 5.5-year deal as well, so he's going to see out his. Like, he had to get the next move right because he took a little bit longer to develop. He's 23 now. He's going to see out his prime with Liverpool, and yeah, I think they deny Manchester United the opportunity to make a smart signing in the same process. It's just like
it was perfect for them, and it's interesting because we were talking earlier about. All of these top teams not necessarily going for the exact position that they need. Obviously, Liverpool, we've spoke about their midfield a lot in the last few months about how they need a few players to they've got Elliott and Carvalho, but I feel like they need someone that's just a bit further on in terms of their career. But
they need a midfielder more so than they needed a winger.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's such a the opportunity is there. It happens so quickly, like you said, and it's given an L to United, even though the profile wasn't necessarily what they needed, but the fact that they were in for him and then a direct rival that is fighting for the position to be in the top 4, playing Champions League football has got them. It's just a win-win for them.
Fantastic. I mean, I feel like we sat here every single year in every single window for Liverpool and going, what signing, what a smart deal, fantastic. I think it'll be really interesting to see him having maybe like a partnership with Núñez. I think that'll be very, very interesting. Let's move over to Wolverhampton. Matheus Cunha, who's come from Atletico Madrid. The deal is done. A €50 million obligation to buy after the loan move. It was Lopetegui's number one target when getting the job. He's not going to be the only acquisition. I'm pretty sure he's already said that we'll see a good couple of players join Wolves as well in January. They need it. I mean, they've got that win against Everton in the end, very last minute, and a lot of pressure on Frank.
I like Everton as a club, by the way, Everton fans. It's just that I had a bet with the rest of these lot that actually mainly Tomlinson, that Everton would be in trouble. And he was like, no, they won't. I did say that about Southampton, though. So.
Indeed, yeah. I think you both kind of flicked each other on that one. They need it at Wolves. They need some signings in. They need this kind of regeneration. They were relying... When you're making a last-minute transfer for Diego Costa up top because your brand-new signing has just got a season-ending injury with an ACL, Jimenez is off training on his own to go and play at the World Cup and then not play at the World Cup. And obviously, he's still not been really the same player ever since he came back from that injury. This kind of signing was needed. I think it's a very different kind of player, a guy that you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket for who hasn't necessarily been that amazing since he moved to Atletico Madrid, and Atletico Madrid that has been declining in general and been playing more kind of conservative football. But I mean, if you're going to take a risk on some guy, why not a guy who had a pretty decent season at Hoffenheim, right?
Yeah, I think we got drawn into talking about him on the last episode, didn't we? So people might be saying, you covered a bit well-trodden ground with Cunha. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts or feelings on him, because I like the signing. And I can, like I said last week, I can see why Lopetegui's prioritised someone like him, because he is a good pipeline to their centre forwards, which they've been lacking in central areas in recent seasons. Wolves fans might be able to educate me a bit better on this, but a lot of the progression has had to come out wide, or when Adama Traore has came back in, for example, or Ounahi on the left, who I think is a belting player, by the way. I love Ounahi. But it makes sense to have attacking midfielder / centre forward who likes to drop deep, who likes to bring others into play. He's a really prolific dribbler, isn't he? So yeah, are you a fan of it? Or?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good sign. I think Wolves not needed anyone, but they needed a quality signing to almost give them an energy boost. Like Zach said, they've scored I think, was it top 2 or they've scored the fewest goals in the Premier League this season. Going forward, the issues that they've had with their players, bringing Diego Costa. Obviously, it was one of those signings where I was excited to see him back in the Premier League, but didn't really expect much. Was expecting a little bit more than what he's given, but he's the player that he is. And that's what it is. But I think now getting Lopetegui in and having the signing that he wanted, someone that he profiled and said that, you know what, I want you to come in. You're the second best dribbler in La Liga last season or this season, I believe it is. That is a good signing. And I think that will almost help reinvigorate their season.
It reminds me a little bit of Rodrigo from Leeds. In that I can see him, if we look back at his career, he'll probably have 2 campaigns where he scored more than 10 league goals. But he'd have made everyone better around him in that time. Yeah. That's the sort of player I see him as. I mean, that could change you know, when I watch him for studying for 10, 15 games, that's my perception of him at the moment.
I mean, the managers that are in the Premier League at the moment is outrageous.
It's a great level, bro.
It's ridiculous. When Lopetegui's taking over the side that are bottom of the Premier League when he took over, it's outrageous.
Mad that Ange Postecoglou's still the third best manager in the league.
Don't speak it into existence.
No,
don't speak it into existence.
If he does end up in the Premier League, he'll be top 4.
And then that'll be your second club.
Why do you say it like that?
He's
It's sad.
He's all right. He's all right. He's not too bad.
No, he's a good guy, man. He's a good manager.
If
you offered me Tuchel right now, what is German for the door is that way?
Well, okay, let's quickly do some quick fire rumours. Keep it very short. Aaron Wan-Bissaka to possibly Palace, West Ham, or Wolves. He needs to move for his own career.
Does he though? Like the last few games that I've seen him play, he's not been that bad. Like going forward, he's been better. You can tell that he's been training. He's been going at it. He's not the signing that United expected him to be, and I don't think that they knew who he really was as a defender, because what they expected from him is to be that attacking fullback that goes beyond the winger and puts in those deliveries. I don't think he's never been that guy. So for them to expect that, I think having a balance of him and Dalot as the attacking fullback and having Wan-Bissaka on. When he's on decent form, he's a very good right back. You know, it's hard to get past. I think a move would be good.
He's not what Ten Hag wants, though, is he?
But then at the same time, they're going to need someone to replace him.
Indeed, yeah, I think that's absolutely right. But that's what I mean. They need to sell him to go and get someone in.
Yeah.
I think if he went back to Palace, that's a pretty good move. Kind of go back to some home ground. It's a very different Palace actually to what he left, and actually might still be asked to do a little bit more progression than he was doing previously under Roy Hodgson, I think was his manager at the time. Obviously with Vieira there, he's going to be asked to do a lot more.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's 25 years old now. Obviously, I think it was fine. Like there was the possibility he'd move to United and actually develop into a bit more of an attacking fullback. Didn't quite work out. Don't think that's the end of the world for him. A move back to Palace.
Could be a win for all parties. I get what you're saying, but like he's going to be an upgrade in Joel Ward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And like United probably do want to keep him as backup, but aren't in a position, as we've seen with the Gakpo situation, to turn down 20 mil for a squad player. After spending 80 million on Anthony.
Indeed. Next rumour, Ben Bertrand Diaz to Everton.
Yeah, they've got to do something, haven't they?
They do have to do something. Obviously, Rondon left the club. They
times, man.
split ways. Calvert-Lewin can't stay fit. They're desperate. They're desperate for a goal scorer, aren't they?
Yeah. Anthony Gordon's the top goal scorer on a 3, I think. Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Mupai's on
Cope
1.
Can't stay fit. He's on 1. Yeah, but Neil Maupay, I said this when he moved. Like I said, it was fine.
He's never been that guy.
He was getting 8 to 13 Premier League goals off the back of fine player. I have no criticisms of him, big ones. He is what he is, but off Brighton being very, very productive in the final third, at being great at creating opportunities for him. All of a sudden he goes to Everton, who can't pass the ball through midfield, or pass it out of defence even, and Strugsville.
I just don't know how Diaz. One, I don't know if Blackburn let him go because of how their season's going in the Championship. Obviously, promotion's a lot more than just what the 30, 20 million bid they might get. And also, it's a big risk, I think, in January when you are desperate for a goal scorer to take a risk on someone that's never played in the Premier League and to see whether he'd work out just about.
But they probably are in that position.
They do need to
where
just
they're
risk
looking
something
for a Championship gem to come good because they've spent so much money in the build up to this that they are like with Adam Armstrong going to Southampton, it's just like, please be able to translate some of that form from the Championship to the Prem. If he can come in and score them 5 goals, that might be enough to keep him up.
Indeed. I just don't think they're going to get him. I don't think Blackburn will sell unless it's something.
I don't think anyone watching is interested.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Do you want to talk about Ronaldo to Al Nassr? No, quite frankly, bin that off. Samaria pre-contract to Bayern. Neuer injured. They need a goalkeeper or backup goalkeeper at least. So fair play.
The fact that he went skiing, very mad.
Skiing mid-season.
Mid-season after the World Cup.
Expect that in the top 10 scene.
Pogba's skiing now and he's injured.
Oh, I saw Juventus fans raging.
No, but he just took a picture. Is he skiing though?
I don't know, probably.
He just took a picture on...
Weird place to have a picture.
It
is. He doesn't help himself. He doesn't help himself.
He's not going to the Alps to just go in for a nice little picture day, is he?
You never know, bro.
Okay, those are our January transfer rumours. Well, let us know what you guys thought of that in the comments below. Quick one, guys. I said it earlier. New Year's resolutions. What are you doing? What are you thinking? Do you do them?
I actually don't. But this year I'm going to less social media.
Oh, nice.
I think everyone should have that because it's very toxic.
When you work in social media as well, it can also you just find yourself getting absolutely involved in it all the time. What about you, Christopher?
Deep.
I've got a deep one.
I am going to make more. I think a challenging editorial for Football Daily. Like we to reinvent.
We're gonna have
reinvent ourselves a little bit.
I agree.
We're gonna mix it up. We're gonna mix it up. That's from a working standpoint. I'm gonna try and drive that home.
Any personal?
I'm not letting these guys know my personal stuff.
Fair play. Fair play.
Stop trying to add my personal Instagram. It's not gonna happen.
Let us know in the comments.
They want to know you.
What about yours? What's yours?
Personal. I'm gonna try and live in the moment a bit more.
I like that.
I'm always thinking about like.
You're ruminating a lot.
Well, I'm just always thinking about like what I want to be doing in like a month's time, and I'm never just like when I was at the World Cup, I was like, oh, what about when we get back and I've got to do this and the January transfer window and all this kind of stuff. Like I want to be kind of
enjoy the moment.
That's good. Two really good ones.
But yeah, let us know what you guys are doing for New Year's resolutions. Let us know what you think of the January transfer rumours in the comments below. And also let us know how you guys think we can improve Football Daily for 2023. We'll make sure we get back in the comments and replying to when this video goes live. Guys, thank you so much. If you guys want, click on screen right now for some more Football Daily content. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, then do that right now. And of course, smash that like button. Have a great New Year's. We'll see you very soon. Bye.